Welcome to WKIM Media Network. Ooh, we've got a show today. We're going to open up with internationally renowned author and movie producer Zane, and we are pleased to host her at 7 o'clock. She's a New York Times bestseller, and I'm going to read all of her bio in a second. And at 8 o'clock, we have author, Emmy Award winner, and speaker Adiba Nelson, who is the author of Ain't That a Mother and LAWD. That book is something, and it reminds me of all of the stuff that I went through trying to be somebody's mother. So without further ado, I am so excited that Zane has been able to arrange her schedule to be with us today. I'd like to read her bio, though. She is a New York Times bestselling author of 38 titles written under her pen name of Zane, Christina Roberts. And she is a film and television writer, director, and executive producer, as well as a publisher, consultant, podcaster, and a global brand. She's been in the entertainment industry for 25 years. She's a recipient of numerous awards and recognitions, including the NAACP Award and a Black Women in Media Award. She was recently named as one of the top 100 top African American authors by USA Today. She's published in several different languages, including Danish and Japanese, under her 5 imprints at Simon & Schuster. Christina has published well over 900 titles by more than 120 authors, including several New York Times best-selling authors. I Wish I Never Met You is her second feature film. The first was the Lionsgate theatrical release, Addicted, which was based on one of her novels. Addicted was #1 opening weekend at the box office. In addition, she's had 2 cinematic series, Zane's Sex Chronicles and Zane's The Jump Off. Jane, girl, don't kill me. Zane's Sex Chronicles was the highest rated Cinemax series in history at the time of airing, and she was the first African American woman to have a scripted series based on her real life. Christina has a new radio show about to premiere on iHeartRadio entitled Let Me Go Ask, which has already been syndicated in London and England. Not only is Christina a public figure with more than 1.5 million followers on Facebook alone, she's a successful businesswoman and has been noted several times as being someone who totally revamped the literary industry. She was on the Essence bestseller list for more than any other author, often having 4 books on the list at the same time. She was the greatest selling author of all times for the Black Expressions Book Club, selling more than 1 million copies of her titles through that outlet alone. She sold more than $80 million worth of books at retail price globally. And you can find more information on her imdb.com pages. I'm going to, without further ado, all this tiny writing, let me bring Zane to the air so we can have her here to talk, because I want to talk more about, let you talk about all that you have done. Girl, listen, I got up there and I started reading all these titles. I was like, wait a minute, where did all these titles come? Zane, you're like a machine. You're just rolling them out. Let's talk about that's really interesting how many books you have actually written. let's talk about that creativity and what is the source of all that. It's really powerful.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. As far as where my books and ideas come from, I really am just a true lover of life. That's the
Mhm,
best way for me to explain it. I look at life a little bit differently, I think, than most people do. I do kind of see it through rose-colored glasses. I always try to see the positive in something or take something positive away from every experience, even if it's a learning experience. I try not to repeat the same mistakes. And I just really am very observant. I think most writers are very observant people. I don't really debate or get in drama with people because I feel like everybody is entitled to their own opinions.
mhm.
So I'm very non judgmental. And because of that, I'm really open to different ideas and different concepts. And when I see something that I'm really passionate about, I just kind of go for it and write about it.
But I think the stories that you come up with, because you also, I mean, they're coming out back to back for
Mhm.
30 something novels and to be on the bestseller list. There is something about these stories that is resonating for you to have that many people purchasing your books. It's as though they're followers, right?
Mhm.
Of your book. You've created an environment or a product that people cannot do without, and they're looking for the next one to come out. How do you manage that?
I think with me as a writer, and it's my character development, I think people really care about my characters, whether it be in a book, on stage, in film, on television.
Mhm,
I feel that if I do have a gift, it's creating these characters that people really become emotionally invested in. And so, like with my new movie, that's the people that have seen it, have seen I Wish I Never Met You. That's been the comment. They felt like I was writing about their family or that I was writing about them. I had one guy say, this is real life stuff.
mhm.
I like to write about people who are flawed and imperfect because I've yet to meet anybody that walks on water. So there's no such thing as a perfect person. So I don't like books and television shows that portray people to be these perfect people because there are
Mhm.
no perfect people. I like flawed individuals. And because people are flawed and real, people resonate with them.
Well, I think too, one of the frightening things about quote unquote movies, it
Mhm.
it it gets into the pretense sometimes.
Mhm.
We're always dreaming about this, or this is some fantasy, whatever.
Mhm.
But your people are real. The brother down the street, the sister around the corner, they're people that you know. You can look at these characters and
Mhm.
you can see them within your organization or your
In a
group of
circle.
inner circle,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
so when we look at that, for 38 different times, and you probably have done some other work too in all the
Mhm.
movies, you're having to go. I'm still stuck on you bringing out this creativity, and it just seems to come from you. It's like it's a special gift God gave you to be able to freely put out a machine like this. I've been trying to
Mhm.
write a book for 6 years. I still got I mean, that's no
Mhm.
joke, right? And there's a whole lot of us that how do you start? Where did you get this? What occurred when you first started? When you first started, you get out of school and you say, okay, what did you just say? I want to be an author. What were you saying?
No, actually, I showed this gift at a very young age. When I was in elementary and junior high and definitely high school, all of my teachers predicted I was going to grow up and become a famous writer. I don't know what they saw in me. I think it was just the fact that when I had creative writing assignments, I told very vivid, imaginative stories. And I also was always a great lover of books. I couldn't read enough. By the sixth
Mhm,
grade, I was reading a book a day. I was reading everything I could get my hands on. And so it's a very natural process for me. And I feel like I finally ended up walking in my actual what I call walking in my truth and
mhm.
walking in my passion because writing comes very naturally to me. So it's something that I know I'm supposed to be doing.
And so in that natural state,
Hmm.
you are then formulating a character. What is your process? Some people have process. They need to be in a
Hmm.
special place. They need to have certain lighting. They need to have certain things going on. What is it that you have to do, or what do you do? Do you have, like, I have these big pieces of paper on my walls when I get trying to keep up with stuff. How do you do that? How do you bring all of those thoughts and ideas and creativity together?
Well, generally, what I do, I come up with an overall concept that I want for a book, and then I tend to name it, and then I really formulate these characters in my head. And I have the base, what I call the baseline of the story. And I kind of start writing it, and I let the characters play out this movie in my head. Very seldom do I outline anything like that. The only time I outline anything, honestly, is if it's a script. And the only reason I do that because with scripts, you have to be more cognizant of
Mhm.
time that it's going to take to film it, of the amount of characters, of the locations, overall budget. So for that reason, and if it has to be a certain length, you're regulated to a certain length, whether it's a television show or a play or a film.
Okay.
So then I do tend to outline more. Other than that, I don't outline my books. I come up with the concept, and it's like it's a form of escapism for me. And these characters just live out this thing in my head, and I don't really know exactly where it's going. I kind of know where it's going, but I don't know exactly where it's going to end up, and that's what makes it so much fun.
So, and it sounds intriguing because you've created maybe 4 or 5 characters. You've created the lead characters,
Hmm.
right? And from those lead characters, you've had to add a personality of some sort.
Right.
Do you think about somebody that you know, or when you see this person, is this person like Bob Jones over on who I knew in the 12th grade, or he reminds me or she reminds me of that girl that I met at this party and how she behaved? Can you assimilate with anything that you've experienced, or there is
Well,
a
only
dream machine in your head, right?
I would only say that a few of the characters are actually kind of based on someone, loosely based on someone. For
Hmm.
example, in my book Skyscraper, Tamalis Wolf is the first African American auto manufacturer.
Okay.
And the reason I decided to create him, I think I was reading an article about Bill Gates at the time. This was a long time ago before he retired and just started doing philanthropy. But
Okay.
it said that even though, he was a multi-billionaire and everything, that he still would come into the office every single day and be excited and talk to the people from the junior associates all the way up to the executives. And I was really fascinated by that because it made me realize that he really loved what he did. So I
Mhm.
created this character, Tamalis Wolf, that was much the same. He was a billionaire, but he was very, very down to earth. And that was the basis of me creating Skyscraper. So, and then the movie that's about to come out, I Wish I Never Met You. A few years ago, I was actually doing the Armstrong Williams show. I
Okay.
used to do his radio show about once a month. He had me on as a guest, and he would let me come up with the topics. So I would come up with crazy topics like manless in Atlanta and stuff like that. And one month I came up with the topic, I wish I never met you. And I figured a lot of people would call in as they always did. And they were talking about people that they in their past that they wish they never met. But what
Yes.
fascinated me was this man that called in and said he wished he never met his wife, but they were still currently married with children. And so he gave us all an earful. And I never forgot him because in his mind, he felt like once he married his wife, she lost all her ambition. He felt
Mm.
like if he had married somebody better, more equally yoked to him, that his house would already be paid for, their kids' college funds would be funded, all of that kind of stuff like that. And I never forgot him because it was the boldness for me for him to call in, like anybody could have heard, somebody he knew could have heard him.
Right, and knew that voice, right.
He knew that voice, and he was very, very serious about the fact that he wished that he had never met his wife. And while I know a lot of divorced people feel that way, like, okay, I'm glad I had my kids and all that stuff, but I really, my ex, but for him to currently be in that marriage like that and saying that kind of formed the basis of the main character of this movie.
And that must have been really impactful to you for him to give that much of himself on the air.
I was shocked.
I mean, really, that's a lot to get. And so, but from that, you have this award-winning program, right?
Hmm.
When you look at this and you're identifying the characters, are you're also looking at not just the, oh, they're a doctor, a lawyer, or they sweep, street sweeper, they own a car wash. You're really building a whole life.
Yes. Yeah, I
It's
did.
not just a character and their personality.
Right. It's everything about them.
The house, the car, the you're creating.
Everything. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a lot of detail, though. I mean,
Yeah, well, to create characters that resonate with people, you kind of have to go there. Like my main character, Rain Waters in Afterburn, I knew that I created her and there were certain traits that I wanted her to have. Like she loved going to Horace and Dickey's in DC, which is hilarious because I liked going to Horace and Dickey's. There's a scene in there where they go to the O Street Mansion for Valentine's Day, and it's so funny because years later, I went to the O Street Mansion and they had copies of Afterburn right there with the
I love it.
bookmarks, in there to that page. And the lady that owned it at the time told me that she had had so many men call there to reserve the suite that I mentioned in the book and asking, did that suite really exist? And they would call and they would book it and that kind of stuff. And because it was such a romantic scene, but I knew that I wanted Rain to be clumsy. I knew that I wanted her to be frugal. I knew what kind of place I wanted her to live in and her background and all of that. I knew that I wanted her to have insecurity issues when it came to men that stemmed from her mother being very promiscuous when she was a child.
Mm,
So I knew all of those things and I created this, character in my head. And then I
that's sweet.
created the counterpart, Yardley, and
Mhm.
his whole storyline. And I made these two people fall in love. Like I knew I wanted him to be a chiropractor. I knew that I wanted him to be the type that kind of lets women run over him because of something that happened when he was younger. Because
Mhm.
we are, as adults, a direct reflection of our childhoods.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
spent time on their backstory. Like in most of my books, I have the backstory of these characters that explain why they are currently acting the way that they act.
Mhm.
So I, created these two characters, and for half of the book, they waste time dating other people because I wanted to talk about how people waste a lot of time dating people that they know are not a match for them, but we waste time doing that instead of leaving the path clear for that one person, and finally they, hook up. And so
After all that.
yeah, because I like to explore those different things. Like a lot of
Mhm.
people waste a lot of time in life.
Mm.
And
And
they both wasted a lot of time on people trying to
mhm.
please other people that were not ever right for them.
To begin with.
Right.
And you already knew that they weren't all right to begin with.
Right. And like an Afterburner with several different people on each side. In Total Eclipse of the Heart, it was one person on each side. Those two characters in that book were both in very serious, committed relationships with someone else. And I wanted to explore in that book how all of us, a lot of us have a list of what we want in a mate, but it's not until you mature a lot or just really, really go deep into thought do you really feel and understand and recognize what you need in a mate. And normally those two lists are not identical.
Mm. Mm. So that's a girl. Yeah, I don't even know how I want to respond to this because that got real personal. That got real personal because it's real. I've said once to somebody that I've been married a couple times, and I was like, I didn't sign up for this right here.
Hmm.
That sometimes that be it male or female sends a representative,
Absolutely. All the time.
right?
A
And
lot of people do that, and I agree. And that's one thing for me. I know if someone is dateable to me if I feel comfortable around them and if I feel like I can be 100% myself. If I don't feel that way, that's the quickest way for me to stop dating someone because I have to have that level of comfort. I refuse to have my representative out dating someone else's representative. I have to be myself. So that is my biggest factor. I have a lot of factors, but one of the big ones, if I don't feel comfortable around somebody, I know that that's not the person for me.
Mhm. You know, one of the things that's also very interesting, and as you build these characters, right? Because you're literally putting all this stuff into this person, this imaginary person's spirit. You're building a
Mhm.
human being that has responsibility.
Mhm.
You're blowing life into this person, this
Mhm.
character, literally. And
Yes.
and so while you're building, you're creating all these little quirky things. There's a lot that goes into your characters. So
Yeah.
I don't want our audience to miss that you're literally blowing oxygen into that
I am.
character.
That's a
And
good way to put it. Because when I'm writing a book, I'm living and breathing those characters for the duration of while I'm writing. They're like my roommates. I'm
Mhm,
living with them. And they become real people for that time period, in my head. And their emotions that they feel, I feel them. And so in return, my readers feel those emotions when they read it. So at the parts where my readers laugh, I laughed. At the parts where my readers cry, I cried while I was writing it.
mm,
And
mm,
with the new movie, same thing. It was interesting because I've seen it 2 times, well, actually 3 times now with live audiences. And it's been interesting because all the times I thought people would laugh, they laughed. All the times I thought they would gasp, they gasped. All the times I thought, oh, they might yell something out of the screen because they're frustrated. That's exactly what happens. And that tells me, having seen it in front of a live audience 3 times, that I did what I set out to do, that the emotions I wanted to bring out in people, and seeing people sitting on the edge of their seat and not wanting to even leave to go to the bathroom from the movie theater, that kind of thing. I'm very pleased that I feel like I met the goals I wanted to make with this movie, and with the talkbacks and the topics that people have brought up. I can tell that it really resonated with them and that they really appreciated. And that's something a lot of people have said. They appreciated the fact that I have so many different ages in this movie, and I
mm,
deal with so many different types of people in this movie, that they could really appreciate the fact that I did that.
mhm. You know, I think that's very interesting that you sit. So, where do you sit when you go to the theater to watch the movie?
I generally, sometimes I sit all the way in the back, and sometimes I might sit like on the third or fourth row. But I just really, it's fascinating to me to see that it worked. What I wanted to happen happened. Because in this movie, we deal with a May December romance, but I flipped the script. Actually, in this, the woman is actually 30 years older than the man.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so, because after the premiere we did in DC, women were coming up to the young guy. It shocked him because women were kind of him talking about they were cougars and stuff like that. And they were going up to the woman who had played the older woman, and some young guys were coming up to her, but some women were coming up to her and say, yeah, that they're in a similar situation, or they understand why she's in that situation. I also show a senior couple in this movie that are still in love and still very flirtatious and intimately active and stuff like that. People really appreciate it, seeing that there is a possibility that people can grow old together and still be happy and still have that
Mhm,
spunk every morning, and
mm,
every night.
mm.
And I wanted to show that aspect of a relationship. So I have a lot of different, things in there. I have one of the characters has PTSD, and
Oh,
how his wife has to deal with his outbursts. A lot of people have been very appreciative the fact that I covered the topic of PTSD, particularly PTSD from the military.
And that's
So,
huge.
mhm,
That's
yeah,
huge. There are a lot of people right there. Is it Connecticut Avenue or Georgia Avenue where they have the hospital for the Veterans
Georgia Avenue.
Hospital? And there are a lot of people that come back after all of that. It's a lot.
Yeah,
And it's not the same thing as when you're going through boot camp.
right.
A whole different world
You
when you
can't,
got live.
you go over there and see a bunch of stuff and do it. And in this movie, someone asked recently at the top bag, what made me, a lot of the people in the movie, the characters in the movie were in the military. But ironically, a lot of the people actually starring in the movie are actually veterans.
I love it.
In fact, the main couple, Travis Keir and Michelle L. Lamb, who are the actors, they are both veterans. Um, Numerous people in the movie. It's the same two guys that are married to each other. In real life, in the movie, they were both in the military, and in real life, they actually both served in the military.
But see, that's powerful because you can't replace that real experience being
Mhm,
laying on the ground trying to deal with something in a jungle somewhere or dropping bombs on something. There's a whole different mindset.
mhm,
I've got a couple of uncles that were life members of the
right.
military, and I've done a lot with military personnel, and that's not a joke. That
Mhm.
experience
Yeah, and like
can.
the gentleman Oliver Brown that plays the grandfather, the older couple, he actually was in the military. So in the movie, both of his sons were in the military, but he actually is a vet, is a military vet. So it's really it just turned out that way. I didn't do that on purpose, but as it turned out,
It's
a lot of
perfect.
people that portraying people that were vets are actually vets in real life.
So then what
Actually,
you
the majority of them.
and I would imagine whether you were standing around or not, they were also saying, this is what happened. They were actually able to consult um, without being paid for consulting because they were
Mhm.
going to open up their mouths anyway and say, no, that's not what we would do. This is what we would do to add
Right,
the reality to that lifestyle, which
right.
is so honorable, but frightening,
Mhm. Mhm.
but
Exactly.
frightening. And leaving your family to go and do something for somebody else's war when we can't even deal with what's happening here in
Right.
America. That's a whole nother we're not going to go there today.
Right. Mhm.
But when we sit down and we look at all of these movies that you're bringing out, the takeaway for those that are in that theater,
Mhm.
they're so realistic.
Mhm.
So they're seeing and feeling the honesty. So you've been able to transform your emotions
Mhm.
into each one of your characters. That's like
Yeah.
a transference of that's
Yeah,
it.
pretty much. Uh-huh.
That's deep
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
you to be able to do this much creativity in such large numbers. That's
Thank you.
you know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's not just one little book of poetry or one that you finally make it and you hold on to it, but you are rolling these things out almost like an assembly line, to be quite candid. No,
Mhm.
I mean seriously, Zane, that's incredible how you're able to make that production. This is a gift God has given to you.
Yes. Mhm. It is. It truly is. Mhm.
So now when you look at all of your books have an inspirational piece to it.
Mhm.
Does the inspiration that you feed and breathe, that's a better word, the inspiration that you breathe into these characters, for them, how do they accept that that infusion,
Mhm.
that spiritual infusion, and replace it to do what you need it to do? Because some of these people are not the same character that you just met and introduced. You picked these actors
Mhm.
for a reason. There was
Right.
something
Right.
about them, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I'm just trying to get to how you how you find that what link. that thread
I
that
have been very fortunate and very gifted when it comes to casting as well,
Mhm.
where I can totally envision people as these characters. So I pick the people that I feel embody what I envision these characters to be. And that has worked out, really, really well for me in the past. Some of the people I already know in some of these situations, um, and other people just come in and they are that person to me. And so, like with this current cast, everybody fits their roles perfectly. Now, I will say the one that plays AJ, the son of the lead couple, is actually my real life son.
I love it.
Yeah, but it's so funny because he doesn't really want to be an actor, but he killed the role. But like me, as a child, by the time he was in about third or fourth grade, other parents were saying that he needs to grow up and be an actor. They weren't even saying this about their own kids. They were saying this about my child. And so he's a natural born actor. Now, whether or not he's going to continue to pursue it or not, I have no idea. But I talked him into doing the role. He did a great job, of playing that role. Yeah. So we'll see where that goes. But he is a natural.
So in looking at the role that he played, and I have
Hmm.
not seen the movie, and I think it opens this weekend, right?
Yes, it'll be on Amazon Prime come Friday. Hmm.
Okay. And so when you look at the role that he took,
Hmm.
did you see that in him before the
Hmm.
show?
Hmm. I
Did you
mean, really, we joke about his sister and I joke about it because we say his name is Jackson. We call him Jax. We say that Jax was really just playing himself in many ways because a lot of the lines that I came up with for him are stuff that he really says to me.
I
A
love it.
lot of the stuff that happens to him in the movie is stuff that actually happened. Like there's a scene where his mother is like, don't act like you want to spend time with your grandparents. It's my birthday. I don't want to be part of a group text of parents looking for their kids. That has happened a lot of times. He's grown now. He's actually 19 today.
Oh,
Back
happy
then,
birthday.
thank you, but back then, I was always involved in these group texts with other parents, being worried. And then there's a part where his sister mentions, "What about that time y'all rented an Airbnb and the cop showed up?" That actually happened. That happened one night where everybody's trying to make me out to be the bad person. And all the other parents are like, "Oh no, so and so can go." So they tried to put it on me that I was the one saying they couldn't go. So sure enough, some kept telling me they don't need to go. Soon as they got there, but we had a driver take them like a bodyguard, for lack of a better term. That was the fall. That was the agreement. They had to take a bodyguard with them. And sure enough, as soon as they got there, here come the bodyguard calling, talking about the police that showed up. So he got the kids that I had him responsible for, put them in the car, and left with them. It was just something, how parents just had that gut instinct.
Right.
Something kept telling me, then the other parents were like, "Oh no, back in the group text, the cops showed up. Where are the boys?" I was like, "They're fine." I
Mhm.
had sent somebody with them, but luckily I did because if they had been there by themselves, and the cops showed up, getting his nose,
Mm,
but the bodyguard went in there and got them real quick and threw them back in the SUV and took off with them.
right.
So that kind of stuff. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I shouldn't have let so and so go. All of a sudden everybody has this instinct that they shouldn't. And I was the one that was like, yo, y'all don't need to go. But they act like it was almost like if they didn't get to go, it was the end of the world.
Well, but I guess in today's world, you never know what's going on. You gotta just go with what that spirit is telling you.
Right.
You have to go with that spirit because you don't know. I mean, I don't even want to go down that road with this conversation because
Right.
that's a whole nother place, right?
Hmm.
So, now that you've got all these stories, right?
Hmm.
And you've got a whole list of of amazing titles. Do you ever go back to some of your books and brush them off to see what or think about what that might look like in a film?
It's interesting you should say that because to me, I rather do what I'm doing now, which is writing original films,
Okay.
because to me, it's very hard to take one of my babies, one of my books, and turn it into a film.
Huh.
Now, the reverse is easier because with a book, it's just so much in there that you have to kind of dwindle down to the essence of it, and
Okay.
you lose something, in my opinion. My next movie, actually, the script was written first. Now I'm writing the book. So that's an easier turnaround because the book will be longer than the script and more detailed than the script. But I already have the script the way I feel it should be for a film.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yes.
that makes it the process a lot easier to me. Like I wish I never met you. Everybody asked me if I can turn it into a book. I may one day, but I wrote it as a movie. But it could definitely be a book. But right now, it's just a film.
That's like you have all these different placeholders, like little rooms in your brain that
Hmm.
you compartmentalize things in,
Hmm. That's a good term. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And so when you take this, right? I'm trying to go somewhere with this. When you look at these sections, you've compartmentalized these pieces.
Mhm.
How do you then create an environment where you've got the new movie now,
Mhm.
you're going to possibly make it a book, but are there things that came out of that movie that could very well become a theatrical production
You mean like,
on a
a
stage?
stage play? It would be very hard to do it as a stage play,
Okay.
only because it's a pretty big cast. It
Mhm.
would be kinda hard to do it as a stage play.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But you got a whole bunch of those, girl. I'm just wondering. I like theater. I,
Mhm.
I'm sequestered now during COVID, but I'm a theater person.
Right.
And so you've got such a body of work.
Mhm.
How
Now the
many
other side of the pillow was a stage play. So
now
I
when you
have done a stage play before. So
okay,
there are some that could possibly be a stage play, but I wouldn't say I wish I never met you as one of
okay.
them. Mhm.
So then what you are really doing, you've got your books, you've got your stage play, uh, albeit not a lot, but that's a possibility sometime. You've got your movies, and now you've got on Prime Amazon, right?
Mhm.
So now it's like TV, for lack of something else to call
Mhm.
it. And so when you have all of these pieces, that's a huge body of work for distribution,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Is it possible from a creative standpoint, and you just bear with me because I'm trying to pull this together because I'm
Mhm.
seeing they're really silos.
Mhm.
What you're
Yeah.
doing is they're really silos. I'm trying to
Yeah.
see it in my brain, girl. And you do it better than I do. So, but the intersection of the people that you have who are your stars,
Mhm.
have you done like a part one, a part two, a part three of your movies? Or have you pulled a book out that could be a series of shows?
Um, I do think a couple of my books, and I'm actually writing the pilot for them right now because there's a network interested in them.
Hmm.
I do think that they could possibly be series. Will I do another television series? Absolutely. I'm just picking my spots right now. I'm very focused. I want to get primarily my next two movies done.
Okay.
That's what I'm focused on right now. However, the opportunity to do series is definitely there. I
Hmm.
just have to pick my spots because all of them involve a lot of work.
Right.
So you have to decide where I want to dedicate, that time and effort to.
Hmm.
And movies are the easiest, except for books, obviously.
Right.
Movies are the easiest because I can shoot them in anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks.
Huh.
Whereas the series, you're talking about at least, double that for a
Okay.
season. At
Okay.
minimum, you're looking at double that. and of course a whole lot more scripts.
Mhm. So when you first started out, and you did your first novel, then you got your first movie. What kind of team did you pull together? How did you create the infrastructure? What's that infrastructure look like to be able to do all of this?
Well, I don't have a manager. I've never had a manager. I do, of course, like every author, I had an agent. I have mentors that I rely on for advice. I have different teams depending on what I'm working on. That's what the team is. It's not just one team of
Okay,
people. When I was doing all that publishing, I had an office full of people. It's different people. In other words, it's different teams.
mhm,
Production, that's a whole totally different situation. Like I have my preferred, crew members that I like to use for my productions. So everything, it depends on, I have different teams. I guess that's the best way to put it.
right. And
Hmm.
and they are professional in each area, subject matter.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
from makeup to set design
Yes.
to whatever, the
Yes.
wardrobe, all of that.
Yes. Hmm.
Mhm, mhm. So in looking at, these books and the importance of all of these stories,
Hmm.
have you ever are there students or programs within the institutions or at any HBCUs that are doing this type of writing, not only for books but for theater, I mean for movies? Are there any programs that are in the school system, in the HBCU type school systems?
I'm sure that they are. I've actually guest lectured at a film writing class, script writing class at Howard before.
Oh,
So
great.
I'm sure that most schools do have those type of programs. Actually, my youngest son, the one that's in the movie, is actually majoring in film at Georgia State right now. So most schools do have some type of opportunity, although I do think that the opportunity should be greater
Mhm.
because for most students, unless they're in New York or LA and maybe a few opportunities in Atlanta, those opportunities are really not open to them to
What do you
be.
mean? What does
uh,
that mean? Wait a
well,
minute.
because for most of the time, for TV shows, for example, they have what they call writers' rooms. And most of those writers' rooms are located in New York or LA. I
Mm,
recommend, like this year alone, I've already written, I know, at least 3 or 4 recommendation letters for people that were trying to get into writers programs like NBC or Disney or stuff like that. They had to have, just like any other thing, you had to have like a referral or recommendation from people in the industry. So I've done at least 3 of those so far this year. But those were all people that actually lived here in Atlanta that were trying to get into a program in LA, which
mhm.
means that if they get into that program, they would actually have to move to LA in order
Okay.
to participate. So while there are some opportunities, there's not a lot of big opportunities outside of New York and LA.
That's interesting, because there's so many people that are really doing big stuff in
Hmm.
Atlanta,
Hmm.
and we're looking at, I don't know, maybe it's me, but an awful lot of people that I know are going into the Carolinas, into North Carolina a
Hmm.
lot, which
Hmm.
is really interesting that there's some things that they're saying are breaking in some of those areas where
And
they're.
that's good. That's good that there's so many of these opportunities, opening up all across the board because that is
Mhm.
very important because
What?
everybody can't just pick up and, relocate.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But also, is there the infrastructure for these schools to even understand that there are droves of people who look like us who need to be educated in becoming actors or the technicians to run the infrastructure for the programs,
Hmm.
for the movies.
I know a lot of cities, I can't speak for all of them, but I know a lot of them are starting to institute or already have programs like that where they have job training programs for people to be in the industry and stuff like that. But I'm not going to lie, it's a tough industry to break into.
Hmm. Hmm.
It really is.
Is this are the programs that you're creating, are there a lot of unions involved, or are the communities that they're being shown in, are they not union cities?
Well, it depends. Atlanta is a union city, but
Huh.
a lot of the productions here are non union. So,
Really?
yeah, because to do a union production, it's a whole lot more money, it's a whole lot more rules and regulations, and it's almost like the union is really running your production instead of you running your production.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
me personally, I shy away from that. I really don't feel that that's necessary for me to do that, mainly because I don't want to. I've dealt with unions before. And not
Mhm.
to say that it's a negative thing, but it's just more encumbersome. It's more expensive. Then you almost have like, I hate to use the term overseer, but kind of.
Okay. Yeah, but that's real. That's a good word. Sometimes that's the only word that may just work for real.
Yeah, yeah. And
Mhm.
so for that reason, if people can avoid that, if they can avoid it, they'll do that in some
Mhm.
cases. And some people, it's very important for them to have a SAG production or, a union program. It just
Mhm.
depends. I
Mhm.
don't have anything against it. It's just for me right now with what I'm doing, I've done it before. And I
Right.
know that that's not a situation I'm trying to be in right now if I
Mm.
don't have to. And fortunately for me, I don't have to.
Well,
So,
I think it's also about it's your production. It's not
right.
owned by somebody else in the way that the union runs too often. In some cases, they're trying to take more from the what you've invested in and what you've created than what they should be. But that's a whole nother show. That's another
And not
show,
only
Mark.
that, by doing non-union, it also gives me an opportunity to give people opportunities
Right.
that are not in the union. Whereas they wouldn't be, if I did a union production, they wouldn't even be able to be on my set.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying? So I
Mhm.
am, in a sense, training a lot of people myself. I have trained a lot of people
Mm,
on
that's
how to, how to do different things on a production set that now they can take these credits and take their work and go and get on union sets or maybe become part of the union and stuff. Because a lot of the unions have regulations anyway where you must have done a certain amount or something in order to be in the union.
okay.
For some people, that's very important. Like for me, it's not like because technically I could join the Writers Guild, the Directors Guild, and the Producers Guild. And so I
That's
practice what I preach. For
mhm.
me, I'm not really trying to be a part of any of those guilds, even though I don't have anything against it. I can negotiate my own situations, and I don't want a union um, ruining situations for me when I really don't need the union. But
Right.
technically, in other words, technically, I've done way more than enough to qualify to be a member of all of those guilds,
Right.
but I don't want to.
Mhm.
And I've had some, some kind of, I don't know what to call it, some shade thrown because I haven't joined.
Mhm.
Like one of the guilds
Mhm.
invited me to speak. Then when they figured out I hadn't joined, they kind of like threw shade at me. I'm like, okay, but y'all wanted me to speak based on my experience. But now because I haven't joined your guild, all of a sudden I'm not a qualified speaker. That kind of thing, which is fine by me.
Right.
You
Because
know,
you don't excuse me, miss, how many movies have you done?
well, I've done 2 movies, but I've done 38, episodes of television. I have 15 years of experience.
Right. So
So,
I,
and I've
I'm
done
I'm just putting an exclamation point at the end of the sentence.
I've done more. I put it this way, I've done more than a lot of people that were in the guild that were throwing shade at me. I will say that. My
Mhm.
body of work is big, which is why they asked me to speak. I guess they just assumed that I was in the guild, but I wasn't.
Yeah, but it's also that folks folks don't even know what they don't know, and they want to act like they do.
And I mean, here's the thing, and this is my thing. What's the point of having a title if you're not working? Like I can work anytime I want to work, but so what's the point of me having it? That's one reason why I don't have a manager or a Hollywood
Mhm.
agent
Mhm.
because I am not searching for work. Like if I
Mm.
want to go make a movie, when I'm ready, I'll just go make a movie. If I want to, I'm not trying to be funny, but if I
No,
want
but
to
that's
do
real. I don't have to go look because I get creative myself. I,
right,
I'm
right.
my own creative engine.
Right. And if I want to do another television series, I can get a meeting with a network without having an agent. I have networks that have asked me to do series. So I know I can, I mean, I'm not, I know that I can get a television series if I want one. I have several different, areas of low hanging fruit, but I'm
Right.
focused on what I want to do right now. So I have no reason to get a Hollywood agent because I look
Mhm.
at all that I've done without an agent.
Oh, That's what I was talking about, your body of work.
Yeah.
I mean, that's real
Uh,
serious.
so
So
I managed to be in the book industry for 25 years and in the television and
mhm.
film industry for 15 years, and I've never had a Hollywood agent. So, and
And with the top publishing company.
right.
So it's not
So,
Wafflehead Willie and Company.
right. Yeah. So I don't, but a lot
Right.
of people, I say that to say, a lot of people feel like if they ask me, "Oh, who's your agent?" and I say I don't have one, it's almost like they look down upon me. But it's not that I can't get a Hollywood agent. I've had plenty of them come after me. I could get a Hollywood agent, tomorrow if I wanted one. But why should I feel forced to get one if I don't? What are they going to
Mhm.
do that I'm not already doing? I'm already overwhelmed, is what I'm basically saying. I'm
So
already overwhelmed with projects. So if
right.
you're already overwhelmed,
And they're your projects.
what would I need to get, an agent for if I'm already overworked and overwhelmed?
But see, this is really powerful because for those of you who are in the audience, what's really important here in this takeaway is create your own.
Right.
It's create your own. And that's what you've done. You've
Right. That's
created.
one reason I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No,
that's one reason
go.
I'm putting this movie out myself. Like I didn't have to do that. I've turned down at least 5 like solid offers for this movie.
Hmm.
I don't want the offers. I decided from jump that I was going to put this movie out myself. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. That was the decision that I made early on. And it's a decision that I'm making for my next 2 movies at least. I'm not looking for a movie deal. And I get people call me all the time, I know so and so here, and I know so, and I'm like, I know them too. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
I'm not looking to be introduced to
Mhm.
a network or a studio. I already know the people at the networks and the studios. But a lot of people, I know they're just trying to be helpful, but I'm not looking for an introduction to people, particularly the people I already know.
Right.
Hmm.
Well, but girl, you've been in this business for a long time. You have already accomplished what people can't even dream of.
Oh, thank you.
No, that's real, girl, that's real. And with this, all of this whole new division developing, and we're going to see lots of more movies coming out of you. You have you have set the bar high. You set the
Oh,
bar
thank you.
high. You set the
Thank you.
bar high in with your books and with your movies. And I just see this thing. You just wrote rocking, girl. I'm just gonna keep on watching you. I'm gonna keep on watching you. I
Thank you.
remember when we were at the Frederick Douglass and you were talking about it. I was like, this girl ain't playing with nobody, right?
Right.
You're on a mission.
I
And
am.
that's you're on a mission. Let's just talk. We only have a couple more minutes, but let's just talk about how we want our young people to be on a mission, because you got to be on a mission to accomplish what you've accomplished.
Right. The only way to win a race is to get in it.
Mm,
It's as simple as that. Yeah, but you should only be running your own race. Let me say that. I think that too many people are way too competitive and worrying about other people are doing. If I was that way, I obviously would not have published 120 other authors. I'm like a horse with blinders on. I'm running my own race. Like when I first started, I told everybody there was nobody doing anything that I coveted because what I was trying to do, nobody had done before. And
mhm.
that was true. So the lot of stuff that I've done, I've been the first at a lot of things, but it was because I was never trying to be anybody else or the next somebody. I was just trying to be the trying to be me.
Mhm.
And I get a lot like, "Oh, you're the next this or the next." No, I'm
No,
the me.
no,
I'm not the
I ain't
next.
the next. I'm the only, because this is
Yeah,
just
I'm not
me.
trying to be, my path is, and the people they name are
Mhm.
people that took a totally different path than I took. And people that I know and admire, and consider myself to be friends with, but that's not the point. I'm, just like I feel like they should be offended if somebody said that to them. I'm not necessarily offended, but I just want people to realize I am me. I'm not trying to be anybody else, at all. You know.
Zane, we already know that you are you. We don't nobody have no questions about Zane, because girl, you have set the bar, your bar, at the height you want to
Right.
accomplish what your goals and your objectives are, and it has
Right.
nothing to do with
For
anybody
anybody,
else.
absolutely
That
nothing.
I know. You are about your business.
Yes, exactly.
That I know. Christina LaFern Zane Roberts. Woo! Thank you, thank you,
Thank
thank you.
you.
This has been powerful, powerful, power. I
Thank
appreciate
you so
your
much for having
time.
me.
Yes, and you can come back any old time.
Oh, thank you. And remember, everybody go see I Wish I Never, not go see it, but watch it this
Yes,
weekend. I Wish I Never Met You. Everybody can relate to that. And I
yes.
hope that everyone enjoys it. And thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, and thank you. And I'm an Amazon Prime member, so we will be looking at that this weekend. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
okay, good. All right.
Uh,
Thank you so much.
okay, talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
Bye bye. Wow, that was wonderful. I That was a nice interview, and she's been doing so many great things, and I'm just really honored to have been around her to see all of the things that she has accomplished. It's just amazing. I've known her for a little while, but not at this level, and hearing all the work that she's been doing is huge. And I'm so excited because we have our next author is really not playing. It's her book is coming out. Ain't That a Mother? Adiba Nelson. And no one said motherhood would be easy for Adiba Nelson. The journey to parenthood started with a big bang and continues with a breakdown for two and several why questions for God. Witty and bold Afro Latina Adiba grew up in survival mode. Her sometimes complicated relationship with her strong willed, vibrant religious mother marked her views of mothering and love. When a chance encounter with a tallish, brown skinned brother at Ruby Tuesdays right before closing time collided with a Jill Scott song and the right time of the month. Adiba found herself unexpectedly pregnant. She also found herself unexpectedly falling into the same relationship patterns of the matriarchs before her, the ones she swore she'd never end up in. Mom to a new baby with high medical needs and with a slew of hardships that just won't quit. She set out on a reckoning that was just as generational as it was personal. She writes about inclusion in her life as a Black mother, woman, and daughter. She wrote her 2013 children's book, Meet Clarabelle Blue, after searching fruitlessly for a children's book that adequately and appropriately represented her Afro Latinx daughter with special needs. The subject of the Emmy award winning documentary, The Full Nelson. Adiba is a highly acclaimed speaker and in 2017 delivered a TEDx talk to a sold out house on what to do when life throws you a curveball, as the curveballs keep coming. And she is continuing to write, and I am grateful to say that she is here with us tonight. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are
Hi.
you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you doing?
I am wonderful, girl. This book right here,
Look at all your stickies.
all my
I
notes,
love it. I love it.
all my notes, girl, all my notes.
I love
Let
it.
me tell you something. I was on the first of all, Vieques, Puerto Rico.
Yes, ma'am.
I used to be involved with an organization down there called the Vieques Stone Soup Leadership Institute.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Mhm.
Did you live there?
Nope, I just would go down and be part of. I was on the board, and I'd go down and work with the kids.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. I don't think my family's house is there anymore. Last I heard, it kind of disintegrated to sand.
I
But
understand all
that's,
those hurricanes down there, girl. Are you kidding me?
yeah, but that's where
Right.
my mom was raised, all my aunts, my cousins. Yeah.
It's beautiful. When I saw the Vieques, I said, okay, this is fabulous. This is fabulous. I got excited. We'll have to talk about it offline. But, I think one of the things that you wrote in here, if you don't mind, I'd like to share.
Go for it.
To my mother, if life is what you make it, you've taught me how to make it beautiful. My cup runneth over.
Yeah.
To my daughter, you are and will forever be my favorite, and my why. I'm so glad you chose me. Love you this much. To Jacqueline, you embodied the very essence of this book: strength, tenacity, undying love for your son, and facing every challenge head on. Ain't that a mother? You fought long and hard, Prima. Hasta la promixma, proxima.
Proxima.
Próxima vez te quiero. I didn't say I took Spanish down there.
Okay, it's okay.
To little Adiba, we did it, baby girl. We did it. Step into the sunshine, boo. You're safe.
Yeah.
That laid the whole planet to rest. It really did, because it spoke to all of the people that are in your life that mean something, that have left a mark. Let's talk about leaving marks, because you had a wonderful and incredible relationship with your mother. Can we talk about
Sure.
how that developed and that journey?
Gosh, I'm gonna try not to get emotional, although it's already starting. So my mom's journey with me, you become a mother once you accept that you're going to have this baby. When you decide you're going to become a mother, that's when you're a mother, right? And so my mom, before even delivering me, was already in mother mode, protecting me, making sure that I made it into the world, because she was in a violent relationship with my dad. And so I do believe that gestationally there is already a bond that is formed between a mother and child once that mother decides to take on that role. And so that's when our relationship first started. And then, I came into the world, and that mode of protecting continued. And then when we left my dad, and we left my stepdad, it was me and my mom. And so it was kind of just us against the world, at all times. And we were in New York City, and she was asthmatic. And if you know anything about asthma and New York City, the two do not mix. The winters were killing her, the summers were killing her. And when I was 9, she came home from work one day, and she was gray, the color of ash. She could not breathe. And I was watching her just gasp for air, and I had to call 911 and tell me, my mom is dying. I need you to come. She has asthma. And when they got there, give them all her medications, the dosages, and everything. And so I think our relationship is one of those things that have been forged in the fire, I think is the saying. And we're adults now, and I think we're navigating our adult relationship, which is can be a little bit tricky. But at the end of the day, she's my mom. There's nothing on this planet that, when it came down to I need to take care of my mom, that I wouldn't do, except for maybe go water her plants. But the things that matter, I will always make sure that my mom is okay, because she lived, she made it a point to stay alive to make sure that I was going to be okay.
But that's what a lot of mothers are supposed to do, but they can't get there sometimes.
My mom is definitely a woman of extreme faith. And I think that comes across in the book. She was attempting, or she was almost a minister. I thought she was a minister because of how strict she was, and she was going to all the trainings. But after she read the book, she's like, I never finished my minister training. I was like, what? You're kidding me? You're not a minister? And she's like, no, I just didn't take the test. That's it.
Right.
But she's always been a woman of great faith. And I know for a fact that is what carried her through every time. Because there were literally times where she didn't know how we were going to make it to the next day, the next week, the next month. And somehow we always did. And I know that is something that she passed down to me, even though I'm deeply spiritual, but I'm not religious. I know that faith that she instilled in me just by watching her is what has gotten me this far.
Right. And sometimes that's enough to start. You got to start. You got to start wherever that comfort level is.
Yep.
You got to start. And I wrote at the beginning, life is a journey. Your life is a journey. And this book was a journey for me with these life experiences, right? And there's something in here that I took away.
Okay.
And ain't that a mother? You will come on a journey with me through the following life experiences: postpartum depression, miscarriage / grief, emotional abuse,
Mm-hmm.
self-worth, self-love issues,
Mm-hmm.
poverty, attempted suicide, infidelity, divorce, sexual assault, special needs parenting, and all that comes with it. And
Yeah.
then you say, there will be moments that feel like the most delicious glass of click Q, whatever, and times that feel like a cocktail made up of nothing but Colt 45, Old English, and Mad Dog 2020. But however it feels, you will raise your glass to going down the road on the journey to ourselves. And then you say, P.S. Now, this is just in the opening, y'all. There will also be a healthy dose of F bombs, a couple of MFers. That's my favorite word. We're going to talk about that later. And writing this, and definitely a handful of GDs. What can I say? I'm a potty mouth, and writing this book felt more like talking to my girlfriends than writing a good chunk of my life story. P.S. Also, some names have been changed to protect identities. So
Yep.
this is how it started, y'all. And it's so fabulous. It's so fabulous, so fabulous, so fabulous, so fabulous. I got a whole bunch of all this stuff over here, girl. So you've got here, we're going to take, we already talked about my memory with Vieques, but then we go over here and you say, you, your clothes are handmade by your grandmother using hand-drawn brown paper bag patterns. You trade beans for live chickens with your neighbor, and you live in a 2-room shack. Then you upgrade to an abandoned panadera that has been empty for years, and then upgrade again when your grandparents start building a cinder block house where the shack used to be. You eventually have a 4-bedroom house that houses 10 of your cousins that now live with you and your grandparents, and everyone is sharing a bed and a room. And you say, my mom was Pope. She was also a self-described tomboy.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about those humble beginnings and how beautiful this is. The whole opening chapter is fabulous. So that was just a piece. And I go through this whole book with all these little outlines because it was so powerful and you were just raw. You just opened up. You said, I'm going to do a brain dump, and here we go.
Basically. So that was my mother's beginnings, in Vieques. They lived in a shack and then they upgraded to the panaderia. And the panaderia is just a bakery. There was an abandoned bakery. They moved into there, and then the upgrade was the cinder block house. And that was her beginnings of life in Puerto Rico. They were very poor. They were definitely trading food for food with neighbors. She tells me this one story about they were having, I think, the mayor or something over for dinner because my great grandfather was very involved in politics of the island. And they were having, I think, the mayor over for dinner, and they didn't have any meat. But in the backyard, they had un quebradita, which is a little baby goat. And so my abuelita sent all the kids off to church, and it was 10 of them. Sent them all off to church, and they didn't know what was happening. So before church, they were playing with la quebradita and having a great time. And when they came home, all, it's awful. All that they saw of la quebradita was the little hose hanging on a string on the back doorknob. And Abuelita had killed and cooked their pet because they needed meat to feed the mayor. You can't have the mayor to your house and not give him meat.
Right.
And so it was that level of poor, but we are going to find a way.
Mm-hmm. But we're rich in so many other areas.
Which is where I think my abuelita always had this phrase that she passed down to my mother, who passed it down to me, which is tu vida es lo que haces. Your life is what you make it. Life is what you make it.
Mm-hmm.
Y si no te gustas, cámbialo. If you don't like it, change it. Mm-hmm. And my mother just reiterated that to me over and over and over as a kid. And as a kid, you don't want to hear that. Like when you can't have the trendy clothes, you don't want to hear life is what you make it.
Right,
You
get out my face. And that you can't
exactly,
say it out loud, but what? Okay.
exactly. You're like, really? Because right now life is seeming pretty awful. Life is not making anything great. But that was Abuelita's way of life
Right.
is what you make it.
That's right.
Whether you have 10 chickens or 0 chickens, we're going to find a way.
Mm-hmm.
And that was passed down to my mom, not only in word, but in action.
I love it.
And then my mom passed that down to me through both word and action.
Mhm. You know, what I think is really interesting is that that's what most mothers try to do, is to say, do what they say they're going to do, that, and get the action, get it completed.
Right.
That's the goal.
We try. We try.
Right. Life doesn't always offer that to be smooth,
No, no one said it would be. No
right?
one said it was going to be easy, happy, or smooth. Like that was never promised.
Hmm.
Life just said you're going to be here.
Period.
Period. That's it. You figure out how to make this work best for you, but
And
no
it,
one. There's no guarantees.
at all. You have a here, this paragraph in here that says, then this woman, my mother, gave me that sweet Latin mother smile that is code for try to stop me and I'll break your face. I was stuck. There was literally no way out of it. She was going to see what she saw and think whatever she was going to think. And you said, fine, but sit far away where I can't. And then she said, fine, but sit far away where I can't see you. Girl, stop worrying about me and get dressed. We're going to be late. How mothers have a way, no matter, too often people think that, oh, that's being mean, but really that's just being straight up so that you know how to function later.
Yeah.
And you can't be coddled with this other expectation
No.
and be
No.
able to survive in a real world setting.
No, there was no coddling ever. Not when I was trying to go to my burlesque show and she insisted that she was coming and decided she was going to sit wherever the hell she wanted to sit, regardless of what I had to say about it. Nor was there coddling when I was, 8, 9 years old, and I wanted to roller skate down an asphalt hill, and I proceeded to tumble down it and skinned my entire leg. She was just like, "Well, look at her go! There she goes, tumbling down the hill."
But she sat in the middle of the front row or in the center of you in that burlesque thing. She saw the whole thing from
The
banana
whole thing,
on.
from the banana down to the eggplant, down to the pasty. She saw it all. She saw it all. I was like, well, I told you where to sit. This is what you get. This is what you get.
That's right. Say, okay, fine. We know you know now, so let's go keep it moving.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it. So, do we all have alter egos?
I think we do. It's whether or not we're willing to give them the spotlight, whether or not we're going to allow them to come out and play for a little bit, regardless of what society says. I think we all do. I think we all do. It's are we willing to be vulnerable enough, but also strong enough to let them out?
Right. Right. And I think it's also that growth of the things that you are experiencing, that too often we don't know what to do with stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We don't know how to package it. Sometimes I just want to get a couple of little boxes and just put things in the little box and put the top on them and then put them in another big box and move it over under the bed.
Right. I mean, it's a journey. When I started doing burlesque and created my alter ego with the Big Bang McGillicuddy, I was on my own self-love journey, my own size acceptance journey, my own body love journey, that had started actually a couple of years before that when I went to a fashion show in Portland for Fashion Week. And all of the models, they were plus size, but they were stunningly gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And they were brown and they were plus size, and some of them had gaps in their teeth. And I couldn't figure out why I could look at those women and think they were absolutely gorgeous, but I couldn't look at myself and think the same thing.
Mm.
But I saw me walking down this runway, down this catwalk, and I was like, They look like me though. And I'm in awe of them. Like I literally cried at a fashion show. Who does that? Nobody does it. That's not a thing.
Mhm.
But that started my journey. And on my way home from the fashion show at the airport, I wrote this long, like blog post / love letter of how in that moment I was changed. Something about that moment and seeing those women changed me and allowed me to see myself in a different light, if only from a physical standpoint. Whatever that moment is that allows you to see yourself from a different in a different way, even if it's just from a physical standpoint, that's where you start. And so that's where I started was, okay, if I can look at their bodies and their brown skin and their teeth and their hair and think that they're gorgeous, I need to be able to do that for myself. And then from that went to not placing my self-worth within my looks, right? Because the two are not tied, they're not mutually exclusive. My self-worth is my self-worth, how I look is how I look. One does not go together because my self-worth comes from the inside. So regardless of how like all this looks outside, I'm an amazing human being. I know my purpose here. I know the good that I put out into the world, and that's what makes me beautiful. I didn't know the good that those women put out into the world, but I knew the good they put into me that day. So they were beautiful. Does that make sense?
You needed to see that to see you.
Bingo. I needed to see them to finally be able to see me. And then other things happened in life that allowed me to grow into who I am now. But it had to start there.
Mm-hmm. And the thing that's so beautiful about it is that you weren't even expecting that.
Not
That
at
was, I mean, like that was like bonus.
I went to Fashion Week to work as an assistant.
Okay.
That was it. I was a marketing assistant. I did not expect to come away a changed human.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
it happened. It
Life
happened.
changing.
So in 2015, when I started doing burlesque, it was just that next step in my journey. Plus, it was an opportunity for me to really model for my daughter self-worth, self-love, self-confidence, despite what the world may say about how I look and how I present in this world. Because let's face it, like the world is ready to tear Black women down at any given point in time for any little thing, anything. And my daughter is Black, she has natural hair, and she's disabled.
Mm-hmm.
There's a myriad of things in there that they can just start picking away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I needed her to really gird herself up so that like that self-worth was her armor, right?
Mm-hmm.
That confidence was her armor. But where does she get that from? Me, because I'm her first teacher.
That's right.
I needed to build that up for myself, and burlesque was the thing that helped me do it. And someone could say, well, you don't have to take your clothes off to build up your self-worth. You're right. I don't, but I liked it. I did.
And right. Dot. Anybody ask you? No way.
Right. I didn't ask your permission to take my clothes off.
I mean, like, for real. Anybody ask you?
Right.
Oh, you just gonna feed into this? It don't have nothing to do with you.
Right. Exactly.
Get out of here. That's a whole nother thing. I'm not gonna say it. I'm gonna be kind. So one of the things that's really beautiful here is this was powerful to me. I bent down to rub noses with her, your daughter, and then realized I'd forgotten something. I ran into the kitchen with my mom pushing Emery in her wheelchair behind me. I quickly flung open the refrigerator to grab a cucumber, banana, eggplant, carrot, and then snatched open a kitchen drawer to grab a whisk, all while Emery was cracking up. She knew what was up. My mom, on the other hand, not so much. What in God's good name are you? Tell me what that is.
So that was me getting ready to leave for my debut burlesque performance.
Mm-hmm.
That did involve some produce, in which I demonstrated a certain set of skills. I'm trying to be very original here.
I know, I'm sorry. Girls on the floor.
My mother did not know what my debut performance was like because I never rehearsed it in front of her. But I rehearsed it in front of my daughter. So she knew what all these things were for, but my mother had no idea. And so as I'm throwing these things in my bag, she's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, You don't get to ask questions about this. You don't get to ask questions." But yes, I was there were some skills being
There's some
demonstrated.
skills. You got to read the book. That's all I would say. You got to
And yeah, that was
you got
that.
to read a book. You got to read a book. You got to read a book. I highlighted this. It wasn't about me at all. It was about all the women that look like me, the dark-skinned women, the fat women, the women with gaps in the teeth, the women with naturally kinky hair, the women's society and the media, every TV show and movie in existence had turned into running punchline. These women needed to see themselves in that space. It was about my daughter seeing her mother, who didn't look like the beautiful women she saw on TV, claim and own her beauty and her sexiness for herself, regardless of what the world had to say about it. It was about her knowing intrinsically, because not only had I talked the talk, but now walking the walk, that our bodies are beautiful and perfect and lovely, just as they are, fat, brown, disabled, however we present in this world. It was about her knowing that specifically. Then she looked me dead in the eye. What I don't get is why the produce? I mean, did you have to do that with the banana? That
Yeah.
wasn't me, Ma. That was Bang. That girl is a freak.
Yeah, that's the alter ego.
That's the alter ego.
Through my alter ego, I was really allowed to make a lot of statements
Mm-hmm.
that as women, we are told we're not supposed to say, do,
Right.
whatever.
Yep.
That's the beauty of burlesque. It gives you so much freedom to really say the things that you want to say, protest in the way that you want to protest. I've done burlesque routines that protest white supremacy and honor the lives of Black men and women that were unarmed and killed by police. I've done burlesque routines that kind of fight back against this standard of beauty and are all in the name of self-love and acceptance. I've done burlesque routines that deal with revenge when you have a cheating partner.
We need to talk about that one later, offline.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not on Adiba Nelson does not believe in revenge. The way I see it is, God got me. You can wrong me if you want to, but you're gonna have to deal with what comes from that, because I don't
Because something's coming.
Yeah, I don't. My ancestors and big homie up in the sky, like, you can deal with them. I don't have time for that. But Big Bang, oh, she'll burn your whole house down. She will pull a Lisa Left Eye Lopez in 2 seconds flat and not blink an eye. So those are the things that, but you're not supposed to say that, right?
Right.
The woman, as a Christian, as, like, you're just not supposed to admit that you have these thoughts and ideas, and
right,
whether they be sexual or violent, like, you're just not supposed to ever talk about it.
That's exactly right. We're supposed to decrease.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We're supposed to decrease and allow all of this to flourish, all this, the little fires, you got to just allow them to rumble around in your face.
Right.
And you're supposed to be there and calm and stoic.
Right.
Why is that necessary for Black women to do that, be it in an office or in a personal relationship or being a parent or a cousin? Why do we have to carry that burden?
That's a very good question. I think we live in a society that is set up for us to be small, when really nothing about Black culture, nothing about Latin culture is small.
At all.
Nothing about it. Has not been from day one. But within this Americanized culture, we've been minimized, or tried to be minimized, right? Told that we're literally told that we're inferior, told that we're not even a whole human being, right? We're what, 3 bits of a man? So how do you combat that, right? For me, like, literally nothing about me is small. I got big boobs, big booty, big hips, big lips, I'm just big, right? Big smile, big, huge laughs. You can hear it 2 blocks away. Like, that's just me. I don't know how to be small. I don't know how to dream small. I don't know how to do things small. And I
Right.
think as women, we need to start allowing ourselves the space
Mhm.
to move, to be big, start throwing some bows. It's okay.
Mhm.
It's okay. It's okay to stake your claim in this world and say, I am here. This is my space. This
Mhm.
is what I'm doing. This
Mhm.
is what I think. This is how I feel. Point blank, period.
And you're supposed to be able to breathe while you go through that. And you shouldn't have to hold your breath at somebody else's request or demand.
Can anyone breathe in an iron chest? Like if you have no space to truly inhale and exhale,
Right.
it's impossible.
Mhm.
It's impossible. So I'm out here making space, not just for me, but for other women, for my daughter, and that's by way of telling my truth.
Mhm.
For
And that's a
good,
legacy, though.
I hope.
That's a
I hope.
legacy. I know my daughter is very outspoken and opinionated, and you can't tell her nothing. You can't jam nothing in her face because she'd be like, "Wait, what? Oh, goodbye to you," and she
Right.
keeps on going. But there are far too many experiences that we have to deal with in a work environment, or if you go to a clothing store in the wrong place, or something. You've got to deal with all this madness, and each time you're confronted, you have to address it one way or another, or be at peace about not addressing it and being able to move forward without lingering with sadness.
Right. Right. And that can be challenging, right? Because it's infuriating, especially as women of color. We feel like it happens all the time. Not to say that white women don't experience this as well. Um, but here's a perfect example. For Mother's Day, I decided I was going to take a personal break. And so I had a gift card to a local resort, like a gift certificate. So I drive up to the gate to check myself into the resort. And the guy comes out of the security box and he looks at me. And I'm cute, like my hair's done, makeup's done. I'm ready to just get my resort on. And he looks at me and goes, "Oh, are you delivering something?" And I said, "No, I'm staying here." Oh, oh. And it was that the fact that he didn't even think that I would be staying there. I'm a delivery person. It's little things like that where just me staking my claim of no, 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 sir, you're not going to play me like that. I'm staying here. You don't need to know that I'm on a gift certificate. The point is, I'm staying here. It's, and that's where I had to leave it. I had to make that very clear delineation, stake my claim, and then leave it there with him. Because regardless of what I thought about it, maybe he's thinking about it later and be like, "Oh, why did I make that assumption?" Or maybe he didn't. Maybe he
Or
didn't. But
maybe
that's
he
not.
didn't, because his spirit is as it is.
And
That
there's
was
nothing I can do about that. There's nothing I can do about that.
Mhm.
And I have enough other things that I'm trying to do in this world than for me to worry about a security guard.
That's a priority. And you've been on your feet too long, Bob. Just excuse me, open up the gate so I can go do what I got to do.
Right. Let me do what I got to do.
Okay, Bob, it's time for you to go sit down in your little box over there. What is tapioca? What's the symbol of tapioca?
So tapioca pudding, like it's thick. It has this weird consistency. It's in your mouth. You're kind of like, this is interesting. Should you chew it? Should you just swallow it? What do you do with this? It's just like, I don't think this is natural, but I'm just gonna go through with it anyway. Sometimes that's how life is. Like you're looking at life, you're like, this ain't right.
Girl, I was on the floor. I was like, what the tapioca? What?
But it makes sense, right? Like when
Yes.
you get into those situations,
Thick.
like nothing about this is right.
Right. It's all thick and like, who decided to make it in the first place? Who
Right.
came up with this? And why is it even out there for somebody to make?
And what do I do with it?
And
Like,
then what? Who wants? I can't eat it anymore.
right. And so that's how I kind of feel about life sometimes. That I'm in this tapioca pudding phase or just what? What is this? Why is this?
Girl, I was on the floor. I was like, and first of all, I haven't heard anybody use the term tapioca in at least 40 years. literally, literally. I was like, tapioca. Pauline, my stepmother made tapioca pudding. And I was like, and I never ate it. Like, are you serious?
Exactly.
Oh, so that was huge. That was huge. That was huge. So talk about your experience when you found out that your daughter was going to have special needs.
So, and I don't remember if I put this in the book or not, but I don't know if you believe this or not, but I personally believe that to put it simply, everything in life is a setup for the next big thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're prepared for things that you don't know you're being prepared for. When I was a kid, my mom was a special education teacher. And I would go into her classroom after my classes were done for the day, and I'd help her out with her students. Some of her coworkers were disabled, some were blind, some were deaf, and we would ride the bus to school together in the morning, and they knew me and I knew them, and we would all communicate and talk on the bus. So from a very young age, I was around people with disabilities, and it was no big deal to me, right? I would go to the Special Olympics with her, very comfortable in that environment. I had a cousin who was born typically abled, and I think he had a bad reaction to his vaccines at 2 months, and in turn ended up with like severe cerebral palsy and a seizure disorder. So I was exposed to that. Family. To me, he's just my baby cousin. No big deal. When I was 18 and freshman in college, everybody's looking for summer jobs. And there was an ad in the newspaper that was looking for camp counselors to work at a summer camp for kids and adults with disabilities. And you got to stay on site, and room and board was paid for, and you got your whole paycheck. I was like, oh, I can totally do this. And they were looking for an entertainment lead, and I had a dance background and a drama background. I was like, oh, this is the perfect job for me. I can totally do this. So I did that for a summer. And it was just all these little things, right, that had been kind of placed in my life. For me, I thought they were just things.
Mm-hmm.
I graduated from college with a bachelor's of social work, but with a background in child development. And I went into working with children and families. Well, so I knew, like, I learned about milestones and how to screen babies for milestones and when to refer to early intervention programs. But this was just the job that I loved. I loved working with children and families in social work. I knew how to find resources because that was my job. Then I have this baby, and I'm realizing at 2 months that she's not meeting her 2-month milestones. At 4 months, she's not meeting those. At 6 months, she's not meeting 9 months. And I knew this because of my background. I knew what she was supposed to be doing. I think all of these things that happened early in life that to me just seemed like things that were happening, things I was doing with zero consequence, were the setup for me to be my child's mother. I can't speak for anybody else because I know that there are plenty of parents out there who have children with disabilities who had zero prior experience with disabilities. I can't speak for their lives. I can only speak for mine and how I believe God works in my life. And this is not a preachy thing. Like, I'm not trying to be preachy. But for me,
just honest.
Right, for me, I can look back now with the wisdom that I have now and see at every step of the way where I was being prepared to be this kid's mom. And so when I initially found out, yes, I did have that very normal, very real, very parental response of grief. Because you know in the back of your head that something's not okay, but you still have that hope. You're still holding on to what could be. And you still have these ideas until the doctor says otherwise of all these things you're going to do with your baby. And you're going to go to the basketball games and the cheerleading practices and the ballet recitals and the soccer games until the doctor says, this is the diagnosis. Some people linger in that moment and really sit in it and wallow there. And that's okay. That's normal, right? Grieving is a completely normal part of this this life.
Right.
But I'm not set up that way, right?
Mm.
The way my spirit is set up, as we like to say,
Mhm.
is it comes in, you look at it, you have that moment, and then you say, oh, wait a minute. Who the F am I? Oh, no, baby, we ain't staying here. I know who I am. I know whose child I am. I know whose daughter I am. We got this. We're going to do all the things. And so, yeah, I went through that grief, but it was so quick. Also, I'm not someone who likes to be told what I can and cannot do. So if you tell me my child can't do this, I'm like hell, we can't. Watch.
Excuse me.
Watch us do it 20 times. How about that? In heels. How about that? Like, I'm a show you type of person.
I can show you better than I can tell you.
Exactly. And so, yeah, I grieved it, but it was such a quick, like, now we're going to be okay. And I knew that I also had to be strong for my kid. My kid would only get as far as I believed she could go. Right? So if I believe that that kid can go to the moon, guess what? We're going to science programs. We're going to figure it out. You're going to be the first disabled kid on the moon. That's what you want to do. But I had to be that model for her. I couldn't let her know that I was scared or sad,
Right.
because then she picks up on that energy, and we're not staying there. That's not a place that we live. That's a place we wait. Hi, I see you. You're there. Okay, we're keeping it moving. When we need to sit in our grief, we will. But this is not something that we're grieving over, because disability is not a sad thing, right? It's just a thing, like having brown hair or having two arms. It's just a thing. We're not sad about the life that we live. We're not sad about our diagnosis. Do I get frustrated about her diagnosis? Absolutely. Because I see so many things that she wants to do like other kids do them. And sometimes we just can't, because wherever we're at is not set up. It's not accessible
Right.
for a kid with a disability. Most things we've been able to find a workaround, but some things we just can't. And so I don't get sad with her disability. I get really frustrated, not even with the disability, but with the world that we live in, because it's just not set up for people. It's only set up for a certain type of person.
And that's a narrow bandwidth.
Very narrow.
Very narrow. Too narrow.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you now are moving forward and you're living the dream, and the men using the revolving door, how many of us have all that? Lord have mercy, just in and out was
No. I was 20, I was 30. We've all been there. I think
yes, we have.
Only one brave enough to run my mouth about it.
Well,
but
yeah, and I'm with you, because been there, done that one.
Yeah, it's honesty. We have to get real honest with ourselves if we're gonna.
That's hard, though, Adiba. That's hard.
Of course it is. Like I said, nobody said it wasn't hard.
Dig up all them demons and talk about it, to be able to say, "Oh, wait a minute, right here."
Yeah,
my daughter and I were laughing. So some dude back in the day, child, because I've been there, done that one too. And she said, where'd you find the dude? His name was Chuck. Where'd you find Chuck? I said, I don't know, probably down at Zanzibar somewhere where I had no business going, and he needed to be left right there.
Yeah.
Chuck, right? Yeah. There's a Chuck everywhere, somewhere.
Everywhere.
Somebody got a Chuck.
Yep.
Somebody got a Chuck.
Somebody got 5 Chucks. Like, we've all done it. I probably got 25 Chucks. Like, let's keep it real.
Right. I was just going. I have names for them though. They can't all be Chuck. We don't want to all. We can't have all them Chucks. They got their own little names. I give them names. I got them names. And yeah, goodbye to you. Right.
But it's one of those things. Like, if we really want to break generational cycles, right? If we really want to break patterns in our life, wherever they may be. But I know as women, we constantly find ourselves dating the same men, or the same people, I should say, because we don't all date men. We find ourselves dating the same type of person. At some point, we have to look and say, oh, wait a minute, we're the common denominator here. What is it about us that makes us keep going down the same road, knowing damn well there's an alligator at the end. We're like, hey, Mr. Alligator, I saw the signs telling me you were down here, but it's okay. I'm gonna come anyway. I don't think you're gonna bite me this time because you know me. Like, Mr. Alligator, we friends. I've been here. And alligator's like, okay, keep coming, boo, keep coming. And
Wafflehead Willie and company.
we go right down the road, and the alligator's like, gotcha.
Mhm.
So at some point in time, we have to look at ourselves and be like, why do I keep ignoring every single sign? Seeing the alligator at the end of the road and being like, nah, it's cool, not this one. This alligator is not gonna bite me. Like, what's so special about me that this alligator is not gonna bite me?
Why over here nipping at my heels? Come on now.
Right. And so the only way to do that is to really, really get real with ourselves.
Yeah.
And get in therapy if we need it. I am such a fan of therapy. I tell everyone I know to go. I've probably given my therapist number out too many times, which means I might not be able to get in at some point. But it's
important. Yeah.
It is. Once you know what your patterns are and you understand where the root of that, like what started that pattern in the first place.
Did you say the root?
When you get down to the root of it, like what was the catalyst for this pattern to form, girl, your whole world opens right up. When I tell you, when I got to the catalyst, I felt like there was a literal explosion in my brain. Like math started happening and it just all like fell into place. Like one of those train station boards. That's exactly how it felt. It's like everything all of a sudden came into focus and made perfect sense. I was like, oh my God, this is why I do this.
Right.
This is why I behave this way. This is why I chose that person. It all came from this particular moment. And I understand that this moment had absolutely nothing to do with me, but I was trying so hard to just make it okay that I've transferred it into every other part of my life.
Right. And it has to be for you to be whole.
Right. But I had to understand that at that moment, I was okay. I didn't need anyone else to make it okay. But in that moment, I was a baby. Like a lot of this stuff starts in our infancy. Something happens, some memory of trying to just make it okay, trying to assuage, whatever the word is, someone else's mood or temper, or make yourself palatable to someone who you feel is supposed to love you and take care of you. And so that imprints on you, this is how you have to be. So you start looking for that person in every person. But you're already okay. You're fine.
Right. But too often when we look in the mirror, we're not enough for ourselves.
Exactly.
And so if we're not enough for ourselves, then we attract all this stuff that we know we shouldn't even be within 25, 30, 40, 50 feet of 2 blocks away. You need to stay over there, right?
You stay in New York, I'll stay in Cali is good. But I think the thing is, we've got to figure out what happened that made us believe that we weren't enough. What was that one inciting incident?
And you've got to get to the core.
That's what I say, you got to get to the root. For me, it was literally something that happened when I was 1 year old.
Wow.
1 year old, that far back.
And you were able to bring that back? How did you bring that back to isolate that?
Therapy after 5 years. Talking to my therapist. My therapist, I love her. She lays breadcrumbs. She just lays little breadcrumbs. And I'm just going down the trail, happily just like, oh, okay, and this makes sense, and this makes sense, and this makes sense. And then it's like I get that one magic breadcrumb, and it's like, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Wow. And it's a wow.
It's a complete wow. And I don't know how she does it. And I'm a social worker by trade, right? That's what I got my degree in, graduated top of my class. I know all these tricks and I fall for it every time. And I'm just going down the road, going for the breadcrumbs every time.
But isn't it, girl, this is so real. This is a raw, real conversation. The reality is that we want that a love that we see in a movie, that we see somewhere, that we see that's painless,
That's
that
not real.
right?
Yeah.
We want this. We don't want the pain. We want the positive. We want the laughter. We want the hugs. We want the walk along the beach. We want all these dreamy things that come on channel 40 whatever on Tuesdays. We want that.
Yeah.
But how do you get to the people who you think they bring okay, they bring their alter ego to the table, and
Mm.
they bring what they think you are looking for, that
Mm-hmm.
has nothing to do with the reality of who they really are.
Mm-hmm.
So you're buying into this fantasy that they've created because they can't fulfill the obligation that you need them to.
Right. So that takes time and that takes work and that takes praying for discernment. That was the word of the year at one point was, Lord, just give me discernment because these men out here bringing their representatives.
Don't
And
look nothing like them.
no. But also once you decide that you're going to fully commit to yourself,
Mhm.
you start to kind of tap into your own intuition. And that intuition is literally, it's just that voice in your head, those thoughts that you have when you're taking a shower or when you're putting your makeup on, driving down the road, just random thoughts, but that's really your intuition talking to you. That's your
Mhm.
conscience. That's, your and they say like spirit speaks to you. And I know it sounds real woo woo, and whoever's listening, like if it's too woo woo for you, that's
It's
fine.
okay.
Um,
Pass it
but
along.
but for me, it's like just I get a lot of shower thoughts, right? That's usually when it's either shower thoughts or when I'm asleep because God knows I run my mouth too much in the daytime, so He waits till I'm asleep to then like talk to me through my dreams. Like she can't say nothing right now, so I'm gonna just get her while she's asleep. But like I will have shower thoughts, and I have these things in my shower called aqua notes, and
Aqua
basically
notes.
aqua notes.
Mhm.
It's a notepad that you can suction cup to your shower wall, and it comes with a waterproof pencil and waterproof paper.
Oh.
And then you can write your little note, tear the paper off the pad, stick it to your shower wall, and the water makes it stick. And then once the wall dries, it's just stuck on the wall. You can take it off at any given point in time. So my shower is plastered with notes galore that are just thoughts that I've had while I'm taking a shower. Things like, who am I when I am sacrificing myself for the
Mm.
happiness of others? Who is that person? One day God said to me, be patient. What I have for you is greater than what you want for you. Oh, okay.
Mm.
Random thoughts. Like just and I'm like, what I have for you is greater than what I want. Okay. Let's go write that one down. You know, I've always been enough. You are safe. You have earned this love, this joy, this happiness. Um, Luke 12:48, to whom much is given, much is required.
Mhm.
All sorts of things. But it's that tapping into that intuition once I decided to do the work and really free myself of any of these like negative thoughts. And it's not to say that I don't have negative thoughts still about myself. They call that the shadow side. And I think the shadow side, like, she really just wants to protect me from all the things out there, but also she can be super negative, super negative. And so when I'm in a good place, if the slightest little thing happens, she's there whispering in my ear, oh, it's because you did this. Oh, they don't really like you because of this. Oh, I bet they're doing this. And for me, it's then the flip side of that is facts over fiction.
Mm.
What are the facts? What is the
Facts
fiction
over fiction. Yes.
what are the stories that I'm telling myself as opposed to what is actually happening, what has
Mhm.
actually taken place, what has actually been said to me versus what am I inferring from what has been said instead of just taking what's been said. And
And as gospel, and it's not.
right, and you know when someone's pulling your leg, when someone's just blowing sunshine
Mhm.
as opposed to when someone's sincere. And when it comes to dating, this is what I tell folks now. Look, I am who I am. I am covered. Big homie up in the sky, ancestors, like I'm good. So you can lie to me, you can disrespect me if you want to, but just know that you got it coming. So that's on you, which how you decide to move in this space. I'm good. If you wrong me, I'm still gonna be good. You may not be because I'm protected, but I'm good. It's up to you at this point.
Because this is not a game.
This is not a game.
This is not a game.
No.
You have this book is really an inspiration, right? And thank you, Katanya. The Ain't That a Mother has the depth and the breadth of so much in how to just live, how to be a parent, how to be a daughter, how to be in a world full of folks who don't always want you to be your authentic self.
Yeah.
And you have decided that you want other. We're going to close this down in a second, but I want you to give us 3 or 4 things that you can tell our audience about how to move forward as your authentic self and opening yourself to what the universe has for you.
3 or 4 things. Wow.
Or 1 or 2, whatever you can come up with.
It's just a really good question. What are some things you can do to open yourself up to what the universe would have for you and to move into your authentic space? Make space for your vulnerability to come through. Your vulnerability opens the door to your authenticity. When you're not afraid to really just step into the wholeness of who you are, the good, the bad, the ugly, the oh my God, are you freaking kidding me of it all? That's when you make space for your own authenticity. And that's when you start to grow the confidence to stand 10 toes down in your authenticity. You have faced yourself, right? You know who you are, but you don't get to know who you are without allowing yourself the grace of your own vulnerability and the humanity that you give to others. You need to give that to yourself. So I would say don't run away from your own vulnerability. And then there's this rule that I live by, and I'm gonna give you the clean version of it.
Okay, thank you.
But it's the 3 F's. We'll say FFL for your show, but it's feeding, financing, and loving. If you are not feeding me or my child, if you are not financing our lives in one way or another, whether it's helping me take care of us or taking care of us, not that I'm looking for a sugar daddy, that's not what I'm saying. But if you're not loving us, then your opinion is kind of null and void at that point. And I don't take it into account into how I move through this world. Because at the end of the day, I have my daughter to answer to and big homie upstairs. That's it.
Right.
That's it. And so for me, it's what I tell my friends is the 3 F's, but the FFL, feeding, financing, and loving. And in order to even get into a space where you can do that in my life, you have to have first found your own vulnerability so that you are now presenting as your authentic self, because I don't want your representatives. So that's what I would say.
No representative.
No.
Here.
No. If I'm coming real, I need you to come real too. Whether you're my friend or romantic interest, like you have to be real.
And that's huge.
It is. I think when you are real, so that's how I kind of think you start to change the world, is when you step into your own vulnerability, then you step into your authenticity. And when you do that, you start to see the empathy for yourself and your empathy for others. And when you can have that, that opens the door to seeing the humanity in other people. And when you can start to see the humanity in other people, that's the first step in changing the world that you live in.
Right.
And I think we all complain about the world that we live in. So why wouldn't we do something to change it, to make it better in one way, shape, or another? And that starts with us being honest with ourselves.
And you've been honest in this book.
Yeah, I have been.
Yes, you have.
Yes,
Adiba Nelson, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
Ain't
you for having
That
me.
a Mother? Postpartum, Palsy, and Everything in Between. This is a fabulous book. I just took the cover off of it, but this is the cover, and it has her on the cover. And it is something that, let me see if I can get it up here. Let me put this. We have it in the chat for you to pick it up on Amazon. And it's a powerful book on so many levels. I tore up all my little things. Really, because each one has a memorable statement, each little page underlined where there are thoughts that, and they're not random.
Right.
They're very deliberate conversations that she's having with the reader. And thank you very much. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this conversation, just all of it. It's been a joy.
It's been a joy. Okay, we're wrapping it up. WKIM Media Network. We've had another conversation tonight. Ain't That a Mother? And I'll tell you, Adiba Nelson this book is powerful, and it's very informative and very interesting. And we started off with Zane, 38 or hundreds of books that she's already developed and movies. This was a great show, and we want to thank our team, Katanya Lester, our producer, and we just appreciate being on this platform with Black Press USA. So we'll see you next week, and we have more exciting guests coming on. So stay tuned and make certain that you get in touch with us and that you are receiving our newsletter. So WKIM Media Network at gmail.com. Take care, and we'll see you next Tuesday.